Yeah, and it's comprehensive since these folks, these engineers, control the media, the entertainment industry as well. You'll begin to see stories that sit on top of what they're about and favorably commenting on it. So, and it will happen in elementary schools.
Well, let me stop you. We've got all the movies about how suicide's good or euthanasia's good. And then now since you brought this up, John Taylor Gatto, I've got to get to this right now. In 1990, the federal government sponsored, starting in Littleton, Colorado, and then spreading to Dallas, Texas, Manhattan, and then now it's nationwide, death education, where they teach you about suicide. And that children never thought of suicide, and they teach you how to commit suicide.
Correct.
But it's all in the guise of how to counter suicide. But in reality, the bioethicists, the new name for eugenics, are openly saying in their policy reports, which I'm sure you're a total master of this, you've read them, and you can even quote them if you like, that they will sell us that death is okay, desensitize us that torture, all of this is okay, and then we end up with this. Internet suicide cult rips apart town as 7 young people in one small town in England commit suicide by hanging in suicide groups on MySpace. So see, now they're not fantasizing about being pirates or being policemen or being soldiers or about having a beautiful wife or a business. Everything is death, nihilism, destruction, no hope, not enjoying anything, all scientifically crafted. Go ahead.
I'm really delighted that you mentioned Littleton, Colorado, because right after the event out there, I was invited twice in a 90-day period to speak to the Littleton event, and traveled out there. Various groups invited me out. And while I was out there, I learned something that really intrigued me. For 10 years prior to, that massacre in the school.
Yeah, 1990 to 99. It was all FBI run. I didn't know you knew this, but just go ahead.
For 10 years prior, the suicide rate among teenagers in Littleton, Colorado, every single year was 1, 2, 3 in the United States. So that there was a lot of early warning that this death impulse was alive and well and living in Littleton High School. They
had a top government laboratory. This is all public. There was even a 2020 special in 1992. Were you aware of that? Because there's so much, you're aware of stuff I'm not.
No, I don't think I am.
Okay, 2020 had a special about how they had them in the coffins, how they'd chain them down, how they would lay on top of them to simulate death. Everything about death. Top psych warfare experts running a government suicide experiment on them. But go ahead.
Was this in Littleton High School?
Yes, sir.
I'll be darned.
So you found the massive spike. It was all engineered.
Of course, that's what you just described about learning how to live in your coffin. That's the skull and bones initiation ritual.
I know. It's hard, folks. Let me just explain something to you. What you're hearing is all documented. We are living in literal nightmare system. How do you break people out of this? They're hearing this now. How does a cop listening, who I know is a good man or good woman, who's checked into some of this, they know we're telling the truth, what do they do? What do we do? We're all under attack.
I think you have to develop the consciousness of a saboteur. That is, that you move among the monsters, and nobody knows that you're not one of the faithful. And yet you look for weak points, and you put some sand in the gears. Now, quite innocently, 2.5 million homeschoolers have done that. Alex, if we go back to 1976, according to the federal government, there were 10,000 in the United States. Now there are 2.5 million.
By the way, it's bigger than that. That's a 2-year-old number. It's almost at 4 mil now.
Well, that's wonderful news. Really. But no one came around recruiting. There were no billboards saying, let's do this. I mean, now and then you'd get a human interest story about the thing. It grew out of some, I think, natural health that exists in spite of all this stuff.
The dynamic human spirit that refuses to submit.
Yes. And the larger this thing gets, the more difficult, I mean, homeschooling as one of the alternatives, but as the larger it gets, the more difficult it is to wrestle to the ground.
Well, John, let's talk about after the break. I'm going to have to hold you over a little bit in the next hour if you can do it, because I want you to be able to finish. Then we'll take your calls, I promise. But I told the story of my dad's a pretty high-level medical, consultant, and he gets sent to some of these top seminars. This was a couple $1,000s per person. He was at the Four Seasons down in Austin seeing, this top global expert on trends, and the guy came right out. He called me on the cell phone when it happened. The guy came right out and said, we work for global government. The global government has dumbed people down too much. Now there's too many homeschoolers. They're defeating our top people. If we don't take over the homeschoolers, they're going to overthrow the elite because they're going to have critical thinking. And my dad called me, this was like 5 years ago, and said, oh, my God.
Heart disease is all.
But nobody wants to know him. They can see that he's just a fool. And he never gives an answer. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round.
We're back live. This segment next is all we have with John Taylor Gatto. We'll have him back again. And, of course, we'll take calls that have been holding in that next segment after that, come up in about 10 minutes. Before we go back to John Taylor Gatto, JohnTaylorGatto.com, I want to warn all of you, this is not a joke. This is not a game. We're not kidding around. We can finish each other's sentences because we've done the same research. And he's done even more in this area. We have scientific minds who are on incredible power trips, who are putting cancer viruses in vaccines, poison in water. They're spraying us. We're all under attack. And I'll tell people in the government, bureaucrats, IRS employees, police, you think you're part of a system? You think, that you're above us? You're not. You're under the very same attack. Mayors, governors, they're not even in most cases part of it. This thing is a self-fulfilling machine with the robber baron foundations that set it up operating. Get Endgame Blueprint for Global Enslavement. If you haven't gotten the DVD, get it at Infowars.com. Do not wait. Make copies of it. Get it out to everyone. If you got the means, buy it and make 10,000 copies. Give it to everybody in your town. If you don't have the means, buy it and make 10 copies, or buy it and have parties and show it to people, or invite your neighbor over, invite them for free dinner and make them dinner and show it to them, your neighbors. You and your wife do it. This is life and death. They take foster children in New York and feed them pesticides till they die. They put it in New York Daily News and nobody goes to jail. They don't play games. You understand that? Get Endgame at Infowars.com. to really understand what's happening, and then get John Taylor Gatto's book for even more on what they're doing. Infowars.com or 888-253-3139. Or until now, at the end of the week, or I guess into next week, you get 5 months free at prisonplanet.tv. See it in super high quality right now. John Gatto, again, fire out the website. Spell it out for folks, and I demand, don't just believe us. Don't you dare believe us. You go read his book for free, or you buy the hard copy, and then you just spot check 20 passages, 20 quotes in there. And then you go to the library and you pull out the books, the Carnegie endowments. You go do it. And I want you know what it's like when you actually go there, when you pull the microfiche and you actually read it? That's an empowering thing, isn't it, John?
Gatto.com. If you want to contact me, if you would like me to come and speak in your community, the email on that website is info@JohnTaylorGatto.com.
And again, John Taylor, and then spell Gatto again.
Gatto.
Now, folks, even though you're on fluoride, I am too. It's in everything. It's in the shower. You can fight through this with humanity. You can still get the energy and the initiative. That's what it saps. To get him in your community, to read the book. You can fight through it together. We can beat these people, John.
You absolutely can. And I think the homeschoolers have blazed the trail. If they were still 10 or 20,000 people, they're millions. Alex just corrected me pleasantly by telling me there are 4 million of them now, and I happen to know because I have friends, I have acquaintances in the federal ed department.
It's growing exponentially.
They state the figure as small as they think they can possibly get away with. But if we're talking about an army of millions, And for a while, it's going to have to remain a guerrilla army. You speak up and throw a little bit of sand in the mix, and for your own kids or your own friends' kids, you take back their minds.
One mind at a time. It's an info war. There is a war on for your mind. Back